Hi, welcome to the quiz. You can answer along on quizalto.com, all for free. The exact URL of this quiz will be in the notes down below. Let's get started, good luck. Which feature allows ROSA to integrate with existing AWS VPCs? VPC peering. AWS Direct Connect. VPN connection. AWS Transit Gateway. ROSA can integrate with existing AWS VPCs using VPC peering, allowing secure communication between the two networks. Which service manages DNS in a ROSA cluster? AWS Route 53. Core DNS. Bind. OpenShift DNS operator. ROSA uses AWS Route 53 to manage DNS, providing highly available and scalable domain name system web service. How are ROSA clusters billed? Hourly, based on cluster size and type. Per API request. Monthly, with a fixed fee. Based on data transfer. ROSA clusters are billed hourly, with costs varying based on the size and type of the cluster. What is the purpose of the Insights operator in ROSA? To handle performance monitoring. To send anonymized health data to Red Hat. To manage cluster analytics. To configure log analysis. The Insights operator in ROSA sends anonymized health data to Red Hat for proactive issue detection. Which service does ROSA use for service discovery? OpenShift's internal DNS. AWS Cloud Map Integration. Zookeeper. Console. ROSA can integrate with AWS Cloud Map for service discovery, making it easy to manage service locations. What is the purpose of private link in ROSA? To manage DNS records. To enable public internet access. To handle load balancing. To provide private connectivity to the cluster API. Private link in ROSA provides private connectivity to the cluster API, enhancing security by keeping traffic within the AWS network. Which service does ROSA use for cluster networking? OpenShift SDN. Flannel. AWS VPC. Calico. ROSA uses AWS Virtual Private Cloud for cluster networking, providing secure and scalable network infrastructure. How does ROSA ensure secure communication within the cluster? With IPsec. Via SSH tunnels. Only through VPN. Using mutual TLS and network policies. ROSA uses mutual TLS for service-to-service communication and network policies for further security. Which service can ROSA use for event-driven scaling? Third-party autoscalers. Kubernetes horizontal pod autoscaler with AWS CloudWatch. Only AWS auto-scaling. OpenShift's built-in scaler. ROSA can use Kubernetes horizontal pod autoscaler with AWS CloudWatch metrics for event-driven scaling. How are ROSA clusters exposed to the Internet? Through AWS CloudFront. Using AWS Global Accelerator. Through AWS load balancers and OpenShift routes. Only via direct node access. ROSA exposes clusters using AWS load balancers for services and OpenShift routes for fine-grained control. What is the purpose of the service control policy in ROSA? To set up pod security policies. To manage OpenShift RBAC. To control permissions at the AWS organization level. To configure network policies. The SCP in ROSA controls permissions at the AWS organization level, ensuring consistent access control across accounts. What is the function of the ingress operator in ROSA? To handle internal networking. To set up VPN connections. To configure load balancers. To manage routes and ingress controllers. The ingress operator in ROSA manages OpenShift routes and ingress controllers, directing external traffic to services. What is the role of the cluster authentication operator in ROSA? To handle AWS IAM roles. To manage API keys. To manage the OpenShift OAuth server. To configure LDAP integration. The cluster authentication operator in ROSA manages the OpenShift OAuth server, handling authentication. Which AWS service does ROSA use for secrets management? AWS Systems Manager Parameter Store. AWS Secrets Manager. AWS Certificate Manager. AWS Key Management Service. ROSA can integrate with AWS Secrets Manager to securely store, manage, and retrieve secrets-like database credentials. How does ROSA handle cluster backups? It doesn't offer backup solutions. Using Red Hat's backup service or AWS snapshots. Only through manual exports. Via third-party backup solutions. ROSA can use Red Hat's backup service or AWS snapshots to create cluster backups. Which feature in ROSA allows for easy cluster hibernation? Manual node shutdown. AWS Instance Scheduler. Machine health checks with auto-scaling. OpenShift suspend feature. ROSA uses machine health checks with AWS auto-scaling to enable easy cluster hibernation during off-hours. Which authentication method does ROSA use for AWS resources? AWS IAM. LDAP. OpenShift OAuth. Kerberos. ROSA uses AWS Identity and Access Management for authentication to AWS resources, ensuring secure access control. How are ROSA clusters updated? Through managed updates by Red Hat. Automatically by AWS. Manually by the customer. Through third-party tools. Red Hat manages updates for ROSA clusters, ensuring they are secure, stable, and up-to-date. Which AWS service is used for ROSA cluster storage? Amazon EFS, Amazon Glacier, Amazon S3, Amazon EBS. ROSA uses Amazon Elastic Block Store for cluster storage, providing high-performance, durable block-level storage. What is Red Hat OpenShift service on AWS? A self-managed OpenShift service on AWS. A hybrid cloud solution combining OpenShift and Azure. An on-premises OpenShift deployment. A fully managed OpenShift service on AWS. ROSA is a fully managed, jointly engineered solution that allows you to run OpenShift clusters on AWS without the operational overhead. How does ROSA integrate with AWS identity services? Via Kerberos. Through custom identity providers. Using AWS IAM and OpenShift OAuth integration. Only through LDAP. ROSA integrates AWS IAM with OpenShift's OAuth, allowing use of AWS identities for cluster access. How does ROSA provide observability for applications? Only through AWS X-Ray. With AppDynamics. Using Prometheus, Grafana, and Jaeger. Via New Relic integration. ROSA provides observability using Prometheus and Grafana for metrics, and Jaeger for tracing. How does ROSA ensure high availability? By deploying across multiple AWS availability zones. With AWS Direct Connect. Through AWS CloudFront. By using AWS Global Accelerator. ROSA ensures high availability by deploying control plane and worker nodes across multiple AWS availability zones. What is the role of the machine config operator in ROSA? To configure storage classes. To manage node configurations. To handle cluster networking. To manage user access. The machine config operator in ROSA manages the configuration of worker nodes, ensuring consistent settings. Which component manages the worker nodes in a ROSA cluster? Node problem detector. Cluster autoscaler. Control plane manager. Machine API operator. The machine API operator in ROSA manages the lifecycle of worker nodes, including provisioning, upgrading, and scaling. And that's a wrap. Thanks to everyone who participated. Remember, you can answer along on quizalto.com, where you can keep track of your progress and find much more quizzes. We hope you had a fun and challenging time. Until next time. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel for more. Hit the bell icon to be notified as soon as we upload. Please leave a comment if you have any thoughts or suggestions, and, if you think this video is worth sharing with someone who could benefit from it, please forward a link to them. See you next time. Thanks for watching.